guys, it is 2Pro or Adam, and we are back again with another Blackout Top 10, and today I'll be going over 10 things that pro players do here in Blackout. So on our previous Blackout sound quiz, which was on a Blackout Top 10 about a week ago, we did a pretty hard sound on that video, and the correct answer was taking out the barricade equipment. Congrats to the few of you who got that one right. Now, let's go ahead and jump into today's sound quiz. Along with commenting what you think that sound is right there, also comment what level you guys currently in Blackout. And of course, if you're new here and you enjoy the Blackout content, go ahead and hit that sub button. If you are subbed, make sure you have notifications turned on. And besides that, let's go ahead and jump into the first of 10 things that pro players do here in Blackout. Starting things off here in the number 10 spot, the one equipment in Blackout that I think a lot of people would never in a million years think to actually pick up and use is the smoke grenade. The smoke grenade is definitely one of those things you're going to see a lot of really good players use here in Blackout, because in Blackout you have a lot of open areas, and sometimes you get caught in these open areas and there really is no way to defend yourself besides throwing down a smoke, and the smoke actually causes a pretty massive screen, and that's really the only way to truly defend yourself and block the enemy's vision when there's nothing else to hide behind. So the smoke grenade is one thing you might want to pick up next time you see it. Coming in at the number 9 spot, utilizing the zombies, because zombies here in Blackout drop really good loot, and also if you land somewhere where there's a box, you can also get some good armor and a fully loaded weapon. It's really easy to completely ignore zombies here in Blackout. We tend to run away from them and not actually go after them and try to kill them. And if you don't kill them properly, like you use an unsilenced gun on these guys, then all of a sudden you attract all of the attention. A good player will kill them silently with either a tomahawk or a bowie knife, and while killing zombies you get really good loot like ammo. Dead silence is my favorite drop from the zombies. Those things are so useful in the latter half of the game. But again, going after that box location, getting some good weapons and some good armor will help you get more wins here in Blackout. Next up in the number 8 spot, I hate this one, but you know what? It works. It is moving with the storm. This one can either work really well for you or it can screw you over, but for the most part, it works really well. And if you do this every single game, you'll find yourself in a ton more top 10 situations. Closing in with a storm means that you are on the very edge of the circle and you slowly move to the next circle as the storm does. So you constantly have the storm at your back, and of course you won't do this at the start of a match. You want to wait until the third or fourth final circle when it's not too big and not too small, and it's something that a lot of good players do because you never have anybody behind you, and on top of that you can catch a lot of people from behind if you're on the very edge of that storm. Coming in at the number 7 spot, we have a dropping trick. So when you are first spawning in to the map in the helicopter, and if there's a location you want to go to that isn't directly in front of you, before you drop, turn your view to the left or the right depending on where you want to go, and then drop. What a ton of players do, and what I used to do, is if I wanted to go somewhere to the left or the right of the plane, I would just drop instantly, and then I would do the trick where you would look down and then look back up to get that speed, and I would be turning at the same time, and that would sometimes really mess up my glide. Doing something as simple as looking to where you want to go and then dropping, so you'll be pointing at that location, and then doing the glide trick is so much easier. Next up in the number 6 spot, this is probably one of the more important things on today's list, and that is knowing the meta. Blackout is a BR game. We all know that BR modes are always changing, and Blackout has changed a ton since the release of BO4 back in October, and knowing what is working right now what is the, proper weapons and equipment to use is really, really important. One great example of this, when Blackout first dropped, or BO4 first dropped back in October, snipers were really, really good. Now, today, snipers really are not a good idea because with the new armor repair system, people always have armor, so sniping really isn't that good, or it's not as good as it once was. If you can get headshots, we go for it, snipe for days, but for those of you who might not be amazing and super accurate, maybe using ARs and SMG is a lot better. So knowing what's going on in the game and reading the patch notes is something that a lot of pro players will do. Next up in our number 5 spot, knowing when to loot and knowing when not to loot, because one thing that is very tempting here in Blackout is looting after a kill, especially at the end game, because towards the end of a match, everybody you kill usually has really good loot, and sometimes it's tempting to go and loot them, and that can easily get you killed. There are obviously times throughout a game of Blackout where we desperately do need loot, but there are times when we just don't need loot at all. And again, end game is a very interesting time because sometimes you obviously need loot, but there are a lot of times where I find myself looting when I absolutely don't need anything, right? I don't need a 3rd trauma kit, or I don't need a 5th sensor jar. I already have so many things, and going out of my way to loot is a big risk and can possibly cost me the game for something I don't even need. Coming in at the number 4 spot, the different scopes and different sights here in Blackout. And one thing I think a lot of pro players do versus average or good players is the sights that they use, because I think we're all so used to using a elo sight or a red dot sight in pretty much every single COD game ever, and it might be tough to all of a sudden come into Blackout where you have this massive map and again want to use those red dot and elo sights when things like 4 times, 3 times, and 2 times are incredibly valuable. I find myself also wanting to use things like elo and red dot all the time, but the thing is, using things like 2 times, 3 times, personally I'm not a big fan of, but 4 times as well on ARs are incredibly helpful. And here in Blackout, you have long-range battles with ARs, and this is not Nuketown. You're playing on a massive Blackout map, so having those sights with more zoom is incredibly important. And if you're in a gunfight where you're trading shots with people, if you have a 4 times and they have a red dot or an elo, you'll probably hit the kill because you can see a lot better and you can be a lot more accurate with your shots. Coming in at the 3 spots, one thing a lot of good players will do is they have dedicated landing spots, because it's always nice to land in different locations, but when you are constantly landing at a new spot, you really don't know where everything is, and also you don't know the layouts and exactly how those locations flow. Having 1 or 2 or 3 spots you always land at, it makes it a lot easier for you to get out of those, early game fights. Another massive advantage of knowing an area is you know where these stashes are, and stashes have armor plating, it has silencers, sometimes, 2 or 3 sensor jars, fully loaded weapons or gold weapons, level 3 armor, med kits, trauma kits, whatever. If you know where those spots are and where those spawns are, there's a high chance you're gonna get a ton more wins just because you know where everything is in that spot. Next up in our number 2 spot, being able to manage your inventory and especially switch equipment really quickly and on the go. This is one thing that will take a lot of practice, but being able to switch between a sensor dart or a Semtex or a smoke grenade can honestly be the difference between life and death, and doing that quickly will guarantee you a ton more wins. This is one thing that takes a lot of practice, especially on console, because we all know how the quick equip system here on PS4 and Xbox One really isn't the best thing in the world, but being able to switch between different equipments during, specific gunfights, or being able to throw down a trophy system or a smoke grenade is something that a ton of good players do, and it's something you guys should really practice. Coming in at our number one spot, the one thing every single good player will take advantage of here in Blackout are those damn concussion grenades. And personally, I hate these things, but the thing is, this is one thing that is so dominant here in Blackout. Every single good player or pro player will use and abuse these things. I'm sure a lot of you watching right now who play Blackout consistently know how annoying these things are, and I'm sure pretty much all of us hate these things, but the thing is, they're in the game, they're here, so you might as well use them, and you might as well take advantage of how OP these things are, especially towards that end game. Having like 3 or 4 of these things in your inventory and using them, it is honestly just unfair. There you have it, guys. Those were 10 things that pro players do here in Blackout. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe for a ton more Blackouts, and besides that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.